truth?
Only one truth.
With consequences.
And that's the truth that I know.
It's time to answer. Bash of the Beach 2000.
Many stories.
Brawl for all.
Definitely having second thoughts.
David Arquette is world champion.
Publicity.
Hear the real story behind the scenes of wrestling's biggest moments. The Montreal Screwjob.
Only one person, and that was me.
Vince Russo's Truth with Consequences.
Over 25 years of abuse.
With Matt Coon.
Vince Russo, Truth with Consequences, is being brought to you by and could not exist without patreon.com/RussoCoonTWC. Now, what is Patreon? Patreon is a place you can go, you can subscribe for a small monthly fee and get a lot of extra content. That means the episode you're listening to now, longer. The one last week, much longer. The one this week, much earlier, but also bonus content, little gifts, live videos, phone call from Vince, all kind of stuff. But more importantly, it's the way that you can support our podcast here. If you like what we do here, you're going to love what we do at Patreon. That's patreon.com/RussoCoonTWC. Go ahead and be a member today. Welcome to Truth with Consequences. Vince, we had an interesting show last week. How are you doing today?
Well, never mind how I'm doing. I am honored and happy and excited and jubilant that you are still here, because I thought you would have resigned by now. A lot of heat coming down on Matt Coon last week.
I tell you, it was rough. It was interesting, and we'll talk maybe a little bit about it. But there was reaction from his fans, there was reaction from your fans, and there was reaction from Jim Cornette to our Jim Cornette episode, and a lot of it pointed right at me with the worst obscenities, the worst things that have ever been said about me or to me in my life. But we knew that would happen. We knew it could happen. We didn't say anything bad about him. We don't want anybody to tag him or anything like that. That's his poison. That's what he wants to do. I'm not going to take on his poison, and I'm going to say I've always been a lifelong fan. Personally, I might feel a little bit differently now. I feel a little bit like he gets a pass that you don't get publicly, but I think it was kind of predictable, Vince.
Yeah, and again, Matt, I'm not gonna get caught up in it. I told my story, as I've been saying for years and years and years. You ever want to have a rational, adult, one-on-one, man-to-man conversation with me, I am always open to that. I have tried to make that happen numerous times over the years. It's just something he flat out refuses to do, but I am not going to get caught up in that game. And I did the show. That's it. Let's move on to the next topic.
Awesome. And from something that is completely unimportant, which is, to wrestling figures tweeting stuff, to something that's real life. We don't talk about on this show really current wrestling. I know you follow it for your shows, and I follow it for my interest, but Roman Reigns this week on Raw announced that he had his leukemia had come out of remission, and he had to stop wrestling for now for that. What are your thoughts on Roman Reigns and his announcement this week?
God, it blew me away. I am a Roman Reigns supporter. Never met Roman Reigns. Worked with a lot of his family. So, I think I have a good indication of the man he is. You talk about a blue-collar worker. You talk about a guy that has done whatever they've asked him to do. So many guys have had their best matches with Roman Reigns. He has made people look good, some people better than they are. So I have all the respect in the world for him. I hear from numerous people, the guy is a locker room leader. That commercial with his daughter, every time I see it, that tells me a lot. Hearing that news yesterday floored me. And, Matt, more than anything else, I really think it really does put wrestling in its proper perspective. It's not that important. It's a form of entertainment. If you're paying so much attention to this, you are probably neglecting things that are really important in your life. So when a Roman Reigns, when this happens to a man like this, oh my God, does it stop and put everything in its perspective. And I mean, I stopped everything this morning. And, I said a prayer right here at my desk, and I'm not going to forget about Roman Reigns.
Right.
If anybody can, beat this again, it's Roman Reigns. But let's not put Roman Reigns on the back burner, man. These are the things that are important in life.
Exactly. Let's not eulogize the man. For me, the courage he showed, it reminded me a lot of when Magic Johnson retired.
Yes.
There's a million ways Roman Reigns could have handled that, and the way he handled that showed such courage by not only making his own fight public, which he had no obligation to do, but making the battle against leukemia public and becoming the face now of a cause. And he made the choice to do that. The courage that he did with that, it shows you what's important about life. And speaking of life, we always talk about the Realm Network, which is something that's available, of course, if you want that full Vince Russo experience with 10 shows a week. And I've heard, not just from you, but from other people, that the most important show that you do that's really the Vince Russo show is a show called That's Life on the Realm Network. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Matt, for a long period of time, and even when I was in the business, I became a born-again Christian, and I think it was like 2006, maybe 2004, somewhere around there. It's documented in my first book, Forgiven. I talk all about it. So when I was in the wrestling business, I was seeing a lot of bad things. I was around a lot of bad people, and I would just say over and over as a shoot, like, God, like, why would you put me in this business? And now, Matt, I know many years later, the purpose of that was to give Vince Russo name recognition, for people to know who I am, so I would be able to have a platform that people come to, and on that platform, because of who I am and the type of person I am, and my life experiences, and how, like, I'm a sinner, and I'm rough around the edges, and I'm not the perfect guy. I'm not the perfect Christian example, but there are a lot of people that can relate to me. And my message is supposed to be to speak to those people in a language that they'll understand about the Word of God. And I don't beat anybody over the head with Bibles. I don't beat people over the head with scriptures. I tell them about my life experiences and how God changed my life. And I am, raise my hand, I am the number one sinner on the planet. We all are. That's why we need God in our life. People love, Matt, first of all, for many years, it was the Christianity's a work. Okay, that's what I had to deal with at the beginning. Well, now, 12, 14 years later, whatever it is, nobody can really say that anymore. But here's what they love to say. Well, you call yourself a Christian, but you did that and you said that. Exactly, bro. And that's why I need God in my life, because I am not perfect and I am a sinner and I say and do things I shouldn't say and do. But I have that constant reminder, get back on track, Vince. You got to get my word across. I want to use you for who you are. So everything I do with Truth with Consequences on the Realm Network, castrating the marks, every show I do is designed to drive people to That's Life. That is my mission. That is the most important thing I do. That is a free show. It's on every format. Whether I'm on Westwood One, the Realm Network, or not, that show will always exist. That is the most important thing I do every week.
That is awesome to hear. That to feel that you have a calling and that your fame has brought you this calling to help people. I think if we're not about helping people and making the world a better place, we are wasting our time. And it's true. A lot of people do say about you, if he's such a Christian, why did he tweet this or this fake Christianity? And I think that's not for other people to say. where your faith is. I think it's for other people to say where their faith is. And if you want to hear more kind of talk like this and not about some silly wrestling shit, go over to That's Life with Vince Russo. Now, speaking of being born again, Shawn Michaels, of course, is public knowledge that he's born again. He talks about it. To start at the end a little bit, have you had conversations with Shawn Michaels about being born again and being saved?
Actually, I had, and he was a great opportunity for me and a great experience for me. After the WWE, I really didn't have contact with anybody. It just, that's the way it is in wrestling, especially I'm going from WWE and then I'm going to WCW and then I'm going to TNA. I had very, very few conversations with people I used to work with, in the WWE. Well, I think at the time, Sting and I were working together at TNA, or it might have been between TNA. Maybe we had worked together at WCW. Again, my timeline, bro, is not great. But Sting was doing a Christian show on one of the Christian networks. And he asked me to be on it. And it was the same show that Shawn Michaels was his other guest. So this was the first time I had seen Shawn since 1999 when I worked with him. And I remember Steve, was telling me Shawn kept asking him bro, is this the real deal with Russo? Seriously, is he really a born again Christian, or is this really just a big put on? And right. Steve, had to tell Shawn, I wouldn't put him on this show if he was working. It was Steve Borden, man, that really helped bring me to God. There were a lot of people involved. I'd say two people that were really most important were Terry Taylor and Steve Borden. And, when you come to God like that, Matt, you literally have to just talk to him and basically say, God, I'm dropping to your feet. Take over from this day forward. Everything I do is to glorify you. And there's kind of a prayer that you say. That prayer for me took place outside of the asylum one night with Sting. It was Steve, and he had that prayer with me, bro. So Steve knew Vince's life has changed, and he saw a change in me. So he invited me on the show. Shawn was skeptical. So, I got to speak to Shawn that night about him becoming a Christian and me becoming a Christian. And it was a very, very, very memorable and rewarding night for me. After that, we had one other very long telephone conversation, that we can talk about, throughout the show. Look, Matt, I always have to tell you when to not edit things out.
Don't edit it out.
Don't edit this out.
Got it.
This is how God made me. Let's go back to the incident of All In. If Cody Rhodes did not want me to go to All In because, a lot of that fan base were tweeting him and tagging him and calling him and saying, if Vince goes, I'm not going. I understand 1,000%. It's not a good idea to have Vince Russo here. It might hurt business. I have no problem with that, bro. No problem whatsoever. I get it. I understand it. I had no problem with that. The problem came the following day when publicly somebody asked him the question, why isn't Vince Russo invited to All In? And Cody used the word homophobe to describe me. I take that stuff very, very seriously, Matt. And Matt, I went off the deep end. Okay? I went directly to YouTube and I cut a promo on Cody Rhodes that, bro, how dare you? You don't know me. You've never had a conversation with me. You know nothing about me. And you're going to label me a horrible word. And I went off. Matt, I'm telling you, it's a couple of hours after that video. And I'm like, bro, and it's God, because I'm like, why did you do that? What did you do? Matt, I could have immediately went back on YouTube and deleted that video. I didn't delete it for a reason. And the reason why I didn't delete it is because I want people to see what an F up I am. I want people to see how flawed I am. I want people to see how that was so wrong on so many levels for me to do that. I wanted them to see that side of Vince Russo, because this is why Vince Russo leans on God and needs God in his life, because it's things like this. I apologized to Cody about that. I mean, I think it was the next day I went on my show and said, bro, I shouldn't have done that. I apologize. It was wrong on so many levels. I know that, but I left it up for a reason for people to see. I am a sinner, bro. I make bad mistakes. Sometimes I have bad judgment. Those are the things people don't understand. And those are the things, they want to come up with their reasoning of why Vince does this and Vince does that. They don't know the reasoning, bro, because everything is driven by literally trying to be a soldier of God. I mean, that's my mission.
To be clear, Cody and you have made you guys have not talked yet, but hopefully a phone call will be had. And Cody has also kind of said publicly that situation got out of control and that there's no issue with you. He said that there's no issue. And I believe he's looking forward to talking to you at some point. That's what happens. Sometimes we're human. I think it was something that had to get cleared up. So I'm glad. And I think that's a very positive thing. And I think more people need to know that that's something that you regret, because that's the first time I've ever heard that you regret doing that. Let's transition now into Shawn Michaels. And I wanted to make this a detail-oriented show about a segment of his career that people have a lot of questions about, and that's right after Montreal all the way to him walking away. Shawn Michaels walking away is a fascinating story to me. So let's start with this real quick. The day after Montreal happens. There's a lot of fallout. What is the company like? What is Vince's state of mind? What is your state of mind? And where is Shawn Michaels at this point, if you remember?
The most significant thing, I'll never forget, one of the most devastating things to me was after that incident at the Survivor Series, Mick Foley, who I loved to death, came up to me and looked me in the eye and said to me, Vince, you should be ashamed of yourself. And I had to look back at him and I had to say, Mick, you don't know what went on. You don't know what transpired. You don't know. That's all I could say to him. But that broke my heart. Coming from somebody like that broke my heart. So a lot of the boys very, very, very upset. I remember sitting next to Taker when the incident happened, and literally Taker taking a chair and throwing it. Okay, when that happened. The thing I remember most about Shawn, I can remember Shawn adamantly denying he knew anything about that finish. Playing whoa, bro. I knew nothing about it. I wasn't a part of it.
Did other people think that he was lying to them when he said that?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And do you think that kind of added?
If there was a favorite in the locker room, oh my God, I would say at that time, 90% of the people were taking Bret's side.
And Shawn denying it did nothing but kind of add more heat to him.
Yeah, and the way he denied it, Matt, you kind of knew he was lying because he was so over the top with it. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's very. Hey, listen, Shawn's a great performer, but things like that are hard to convince people of. So Shawn trying to convince people he knew nothing about it was definitely not coming across as sincere or genuine.
So the idea, of course, you only have a few hours between Montreal and Raw the next day. And as you said, or as you pronounce it, Raw, but
All right. Edit that. I gotta tell you the edit point. I'm telling you the edit points too.
That's so. You only had hours really to kind of figure out what's going to happen. Bret's now gone.
There's no hours. The show was written.
The show was written. But
see, that's the you're going to talk about the little Bret.
Sure, Little Brett. Tell me about Little Brett. So, if for those who don't remember it, I'm sure you all do. Shawn Michaels gets out, talks a bunch of shit about Brett. The fans are chanting, "We want Brett." He said, Shawn Michaels said, "You've seen nothing yet." He drove Brett down south with all the rest of those dinosaurs. And one day, my friends that are down there that aren't dinosaurs are going to beat the living hell out of you one day. And then he challenges Bret hard. His music plays, and Little Brett, a little person, comes out in full Bret Hart gear and gets the beat down. Tell us
Matt,
about that.
That was written. That was written. Had nothing to do with the finish of the Survivor Series.
So regardless of the finish, the midget, I got to stop doing that. The little person was going to be there regardless of the fact.
God, that was already written. That was already on the show.
So
yes,
at that time, did you guys plan what Mania would be? Like, was it already known that a few months later it would be Shawn Michaels versus Austin, or was that still in the works, or do you remember?
Oh, man, there was such fallout over that incident, bro. Like, I don't even think we were thinking about WrestleMania. Vince is now walking around with a black eye. Okay? So now we have our regular production meeting for the show. After the production meeting, everybody leaves. And now you got the main players in this room, and we're talking about the incident. So you got Bruce in this room. Yeah, you got Pat Patterson in there. You got Briscoe in there. You got JR in there. I don't know if Cornette was in there or not. He probably was. But you got the main people in this room. They're all talking about sweeping the incident under the rug like it never happened. It's bro, and nothing against them, but they're thinking of how it would have been done in the past. Okay, bro, we're not going to say one of the talent punched the promoter in the eye. We're going to bury this. We're going to bury this. We're going to bury this.
But meanwhile, you've got Vince walking around with a perfect black eye.
With a black eye.
Right.
Yeah. And, if people disliked me, this was probably part of the reason why. I said, guys, wait a minute. In the history of wrestling from here going forward, you're never going to have a story like this. The top guy of the company who's leaving to go to the competition just punched the promoter in the face. And you guys want to sweep it under the rug? You're never, ever going to have a story like this again. We need to take advantage of it. Now, Matt, while I'm talking, I'm always measuring Vince's reaction.
And you've said before, if he's quiet, he's listening.
Yeah, I know he's listening to every word I say. And I'm the only one presenting this side. And I know Vince is hearing this side. So, we break up the meeting. It's not something that had to be like addressed that day. Okay, but we break up the meeting. Sure enough, as soon as we get back to the office, the first thing that happened is I was like, I had a meeting with Vince, and I'm like, Vince, you've got to have a meeting with the company. Like, the boss is walking around with a black eye. Everybody is going to be talking about this, bro. You've got to set the record straight, and you got to let people know what's going on. And he did that. He had a company-wide meeting and explained the situation to everybody. Then he went over to the studio. And this is where Vince cut the "I didn't screw Brett, Brett screwed Brett." Bro, that was all Vince. I did not give him that promo. I wish I would have given him that line. What a great freaking line. That was 100% Vince. Based on what I said in that meeting prior, now we were going to use this. Bro, that promo right there was arguably the beginning of the Attitude Era.
That was absolutely it. And, I've heard this from Shawn Michaels before about, stealing heat, and Brett stealing heat from him by hitting Undertaker with a chair a few months before. And there's a top heel, top face, that kind of thing. Did it steal heat from Shawn Michaels being the number one heel in the company for Vince now to start moving into that position?
I don't think so. I think if you're talking to talent, like, a lot of them will feel that way. like in this case, that's how Shawn would feel. I don't believe that at all. Shawn Michaels had no problem getting heat, and Shawn Michaels didn't have to go out there and get the cheap heat by burying the town. I don't know if I've ever heard Shawn bury a town. Bro, Shawn was so confident in himself and full of himself and like really believed he was better than everybody else. Bro, you're going to multiply that 100 times over by what he was on. He had a huge chip on his shoulder. Shawn Michaels had no problem getting his own heat.
That's the quote of the show. So the November 10th, 1997, you set up the next pay-per-view, which is Shawn Michaels versus Ken Shamrock. Let's talk a little bit about Ken Shamrock. Where did you see his place in the company? Where did other people see his place in the company? What did Shawn think about him as an opponent?
Boy, I got to tell you, man, Ken is one of those guys that came over, and the transition from, I guess it was Ultimate Fighting back then, the transition from Ultimate Fighting to professional wrestling was unfreaking believable.
But with him, it seemed like a missed opportunity. He really seemed to me like he could be a future world champion.
No question about it. He got it, bro. He got it. Like, bro, you believed every word Shamrock said. Like, you just believed this guy was going to kill you. Behind the scenes, bro, there was a lot going on with like Ken Shamrock and his contract and stuff like that. Bro, I'm not privy to this stuff. I don't know I don't know what Ken's making. I don't know what Ken wants. I don't know what the disagreements are. I'm just trying to write a television show. So if I'm writing a television show with the flow and I'm going with what's getting over, what the people are buying, I'm going with Ken Shamrock. But now all of a sudden, when there's, a contract problem or things happening on a level above me, I'm not privy to that until I'm told, bro, there's a little problem with Shamrock's contract, we need to pull off of this a little. And I don't even ask why, because it's none of my business.
Right. So they'll tell you, hey, that thing we're doing, there's some issues with it. Put the brakes on this. Put the brakes on that.
Yeah, and they wouldn't really say put the brakes on it. They would always say like back off, because like they would be trying to work it out. You know what I'm saying? So they would always be like, if we're going full speed ahead, it would always be okay. Like take the foot off the pedal, go a little slower. We don't know how this thing is going to turn out.
Now, while this is going on with Shawn Michaels, where he's leading up to this match with Ken Shamrock.
Bro, can we back up one more time?
Sure.
I got to tell you a great story. It's part of this, but it's before Montreal.
Oh, go ahead, knock it out.
Bro, one of the most memorable moments to me is we are on the road somewhere, and I'm in the office with Vince. It's just me and Vince, and freaking Pat Patterson comes walking in, and I never saw Pat like this before because he was laughing, but it was a nervous laughter. It was like he was laughing. It was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to be reacting to this. He had just come out of the locker room where Brett and Shawn literally had a physical altercation in the freaking shower. And, to my understanding, Brett ripped a patch of Shawn Michaels' hair right out of his head. And then Pat came in to tell me and Vince, and it was like a nervous laughter of like, I can't believe what I just saw. It was at that point that I really understood, holy shit, like this is to another level. Then there was also the incident, bro, of, Shawn cut that Sunny promo on Brett. So it was really getting to the level of, bro, this thing is really getting ugly and this thing is really getting very, very dirty.
And was that indicative at this time, the Shawn Michaels at this time, indicative of him really just kind of doing what he wanted to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah. And a lot of times, man, it was the pills talking.
And so this was a time, this time period we're talking about, where addiction had taken its grip on him, as we've talked about, or as he's talked about before.
Yes.
So
and to Brett, you got to understand, to Brett, addiction or no addiction, to Bret, it was a matter of respect.
Sure.
Respect was very important to Bret Hart. Very, very, very important. And when he's got a guy like Shawn Michaels, pills, addiction or not, feeling like he's just disrespecting him, bro, Bret's going to have a problem with you.
So when Shawn is out in front of the camera, let's say, we're talking about this, November 17th Raw, where Vince does the promo, but he's doing stuff with Triple H and Chyna, the very height of the D-Generation X, and is Shawn just doing what he wants to out there? Or are you writing this stuff?
No, it's a combination of the both. Like, I'm writing it, and he's performing it, and of course there's ad libs. Of course Shawn's adding his whole stuff, but I was very, very, very much involved with the whole DX and the whole DX process, bro. You talk about the windshield wipers with Slaughter. I mean, come on, like, one of the funniest things I've ever seen in the wrestling business. But I am writing a lot of this, but he's not holding back at all, and he's adding his flavor to it. And he's feeling bulletproof at this point.
So for the purposes of our Patreon members,
I think part of it was, you got to understand this is going on for him and Bret for so long. And I think to Shawn, there was a sense of, I won the war, bro. Like, you are not here anymore. And he was the cock of the walk, and that's the way he carried himself.
November 24th is the time the little person came out. Something else happens in that episode as well. Jim the Anvil Neidhart gets involved. He comes out and calls out DX. What was the relationship? They used Neidhart. They said he could join DX, and they beat him down. Owen gets involved in a couple weeks. What is the relationship between Shawn and the rest of the locker room back then? In particular, the people that were close to Bret Hart.
Matt, at the end of the day with wrestlers, bro, this is where the respect comes in. Bro, at the end of the day, regardless of the feelings, it's all about doing business. And regardless of how they feel about Shawn, regardless of what they think, bro, that's their job. They go to work. Vince McMahon tells them what to do. They're depending on that money to support their families. Regardless of what the personal feelings are, that's business. And at the end of the day, they do business. Bro, that came down to, there was, Owen and Bret. Bret was ready to disown Owen as his brother because Owen was going to go back to work. And Owen was like, yes, I'm your brother and I love you unconditionally. And what they did was wrong and I don't agree with it. And I let Vince know I felt it was wrong, but I've got to go do what I'm being told because I got to take care of my family.
At that point in time, you knew that the DX thing was taking over so quick. How involved were you in the naming of the pay-per-views? DX is the name of the pay-per-view. That's a pretty big step.
No, bro. Creative Services put out a poster months before, and they named the pay-per-view D-Generation X. Poster for an In Your House where somebody in Creative Services came up with D-Generation X. And I said, bro, that's where the name came from. The music, I think maybe to this day, the best theme song. You know who was responsible for that?
Who's that?
Shane McMahon. Shane McMahon was and he had nothing to do with creative at that point. But he took an interest with this. He was very involved. I remember, bro, we were in the office. He took me out to his car to listen to something that was very similar to what turned into the DX song.
Was it Rage Against the Machine?
I think it might have been.
The name D-Generation X came actually in retro fashion from the pay-per-view that was planned months in advance.
Absolutely, and I don't know who coined that.
In that same match that Shawn Michaels had with Ken Shamrock, we saw the reemergence, the reappearance of Owen Hart. how did Shawn and Owen feel about each other? You said that Brett was upset with Owen. Were there any interactions backstage, or did you talk to Shawn at all about Owen or how he felt about working with Owen?
These guys were all about making money, bro. That's how they looked at it. Shawn knew, if I can make money with Owen based on the situation with Brett, Owen's thinking the same thing. These guys are businessmen. They may have personal feelings, bro. They're gonna put those feelings aside to make money. That's why Shawn and Brett got to the point that it did, because Brett was not willing to put those feelings aside. Brett was not willing to do business with Shawn. That's why the Survivor Series happened. 95% of the time, put the personal differences aside, these guys are going to do business with each other.
So you've got Owen coming out, but Shawn is doing promos he does a promo about describing Owen Hart as the small piece of the turd that keeps coming back no matter how many times you flush the toilet. And then Shawn Michaels strips all his clothes off and is parading around in his underwear. How much of this was written and how much of this is Shawn, and how much of this was stuff Shawn wasn't supposed to do?
Well, let's talk about a couple of things here. Bro, listen, I can sit here and I could tell you 100,000 things I would love to take credit for. Okay, I cannot take credit for the Shawn promo where he vividly described Owen Hart as a piece of poo going down the toilet. I cannot take credit for Owen Hart jumping all over that and using "I am not a nugget" for I wish I could say that was Shawn and that was Owen. Okay, freaking Matt, I got to tell you this because this has to come into play someplace. Okay, this was a big part of it. I saw a lot of people come through that door at the WWE. A lot of people. Nobody talked to Vince McMahon the way Shawn Michaels talked to Vince McMahon. Nobody, bro. Whatever Shawn was feeling, whatever Shawn was thinking, he would say it directly to Vince McMahon's face. And bro, I don't know what it was. I don't know if Vince was a little intimidated of Shawn, because nobody else did that, bro. Nobody did that. Austin didn't do that. The Rock didn't do that. Nobody did that. And that was the one thing that would freaking blow me away, was Shawn's handling of Vince McMahon, bro. Like, nobody came close to talking to Vince the way Shawn did.
At this time and point, you have some, real quick, I'm going to go back to that. What did you see Shawn say to Vince? Can you remember anything you saw Shawn say to Vince that no one else could say?
The most memorable thing was, Matt, there was a time between January and WrestleMania was what, March, April?
That's about right. There
was a good 3-month period. Vince and Shawn were not speaking to each other. Well, guess who the liaison is?
Is it Vince Russo?
It's Vince Russo.
All right. So
now let me tell you, I got to give credit where credit is due here. Triple H was in a horrible spot. But Triple H was doing his best to, damper the fire and keep things calm. Austin, bro, I could tell so many times when I would be privy to Austin, Triple H, Shawn, and Chyna, and we're talking about what we're doing that night. I could see Austin doing everything he had to do to keep his freaking composure. Because Austin wanted to blow. Triple H's role is, I got to keep the lid on so Austin doesn't blow. If Austin blows, this is not going to be good. Bro, Shawn didn't give a shit. Shawn was going to say exactly what Shawn wanted to say. He didn't care if it was going to piss off Austin. He didn't care if he was going to piss off Vince. Austin now knows I'm the guy. I got to lead by example. I'm not going to get in a fight with Shawn Michaels. It took me a long time to get here. Triple H knows if something happens between Shawn and Austin, it's going to be messy. It was a whole dynamic that was literally, 3 months of my life.
So at this point, Shawn is saying whatever he wants to Vince. He's pissing off everybody in the room. Triple H is trying to keep a lid on things.
I can't say, and again, the pills had a lot to do with it. I can't say I 100% agreed with the way Shawn handled it. I don't know if I would have handled it the same way, but I will say I 100% knew and understood where he was coming from. Vince McMahon knew I can't control Shawn Michaels. Shawn is a loose cannon. He had to know Shawn's under the influence. Shawn is unpredictable. I don't know what Shawn is going to do. Okay? Austin was already his guy. And you could see it. And all the attention was going to Austin. Shawn Michaels felt like he was being kicked to the curb. And Shawn Michaels is going all the way back to, 1994, 1995, 1996, when your company was in the shitter.
It was me.
And I was making every house show. You put me in there with Vader. You put me in there with Sid. I'm all over the place. I was the only bona fide star that you had. And I carried this freaking company. And now you're kicking me to the curb like you're a piece of... He knew it. He saw it and he knew it. And that's what he was reacting to.
Did Shawn feel betrayed?
I think absolutely 100%. And if you know Shawn, he's a sensitive guy, bro. Shawn has a very close relationship with his parents, very close relationship with his mom. That tells you a lot about a guy. Shawn was a very, very sensitive guy. So this hurt him. It wasn't even a matter of this is making me mad and I'm pissed off. This is hurting Shawn.
At this time, in December of, right before, Tyson comes in, it seems like WWE's trying a lot of things on. You've got him facing Shamrock. You've got Owen interfering and being the Blackheart. You've got Undertaker challenging him to a casket match at the Royal Rumble. At that time, was Austin already Vince's guy, and was Vince already looking kind of to move on beyond Michaels?
No doubt. No doubt.
How much did Michaels, the person, have to do with Vince wanting to move him aside versus Michaels, the performer?
Oh, it was the person, and I think it was the unpredictability. Here's where I have all the respect in the world for Shawn. The minute he stepped into that ring, Matt, you didn't know any of this shit was going on. Once he stepped foot inside that ring, it was Shawn Michaels, the professional. And you would never know in a million years what was going on behind the scenes.
But outside of the ring, he's still trying to protect his spot. He's still trying to get his respect. I
don't think he's trying to protect his spot anymore. I think he knows his spot is gone.
So now he's just got short timer's attitude and just kind of going off whenever he wants because he knows his time is short.
I don't think he has short timer's attitude, bro. I think he's still being a professional. Bro, you're talking about his match with Taker. You think freaking Shawn is going to get in that ring and have a bad match with Taker? Same with Shamrock. You think he's going to get in that ring with Shamrock and have a bad match with Shamrock? He's not going to do that with those other guys because it's not about them. You know what I'm saying? I've got my differences with Vince. Taker's got nothing to do with this. Ken Shamrock's got nothing to do with this. So that's the boy code. That's the boy code. When I have freaking my match with Taker, it's about me and him. He has nothing to freaking do with this. That's the mentality. That's where the pride comes in, and that's where the respect comes in.
The t-shirts are in. We have some great t-shirts brought to us by our good friends at What For Apparel. Now, to get one of our t-shirts today, and you're going to love these shirts, all you have to do is go to shirtsoftruth.com. That's shirtsoftruth.com, which has something I think is kind of becoming an iconic logo. Me and Vince hooked up to the lie detector machine. We've got Russo Coon 2020. We've got an I Believe Russo shirt. We've got a great TWC shirt featuring all three fonts of the three companies that Vince worked with. And I don't know who wants this. I know Conrad Thompson doesn't, but it's I'm a Matt Coon Guy. We've also got the FMK shirt, and I don't know if you know this, but it stands for Matt Coon. And we've got the Bischoff-inspired NWO style block shirt, because of course we are Russo Club, and from last week we have the Wonton Bomb, brother, and that is available in the Hulkamania colors. Go to shirtsoftruth.com today, support the show, show your colors, show you're part of Team Truth with Consequences. Go to shirtsoftruth.com today. In December, and the match gets set up with Taker on December 15th, Raw. In Christmas time, this is very Christmassy. There's a skit with DX where they remove their clothing except the Speedos that reveal the words Merry and Christmas on them. Do you remember this? And
oh yeah,
and is this something that you came up with, or
absolutely? Yeah, no, this was like Matt. When you see the big scenes, like
Sure.
people got to understand this. The big scenes are written. Like somebody's got to write the big scenes. Now, when you put the performers in the big scenes, of course, bro, they're open to ad lib. You know, Larry, it's the same with Curb Your Enthusiasm. Larry David writes the show, but when he puts the performers in the scene, he goes, bro, you got the freedom to ad lib. That's what they all did. They all added their personality to the nuts and the bolts of what was in a script. Yes.
So something interesting happens here. We hear a lot about the finger poke of doom. We hear about a lot, not just once, maybe not just twice, but definitely brings to mind some Bash of the Beach 2000 where someone lays down for somebody. But in late 1997, HBK and Triple H tease a match for the European title, which for some reason HBK owns. And he just takes the dive. Triple H covers him for the title, 1, 2, and 3. Do you remember? And of course, after the match, Michaels cries after the match, and Cornette on commentary says he's great at crying on cue. Did you come up with that idea of, well, let's go ahead and have him lay down for him to transfer the title that way?
Oh yeah, absolutely, because that was the whole thing with DX. Like it was the world against DX. But they were always going to outsmart everybody. So, like, you think you were going to back them to the wall, but you were never going to get the best of them. They were always going to shove it up your backside.
Why didn't the Owen thing, it seems like Owen was positioned as almost like an Austin character, outsider. He started running in the ring. He was supposed to face Triple H, but Triple H has a knee injury, so it becomes HBK against Owen Hart for the title. And they have a title match on Raw. It was a great match. Triple H hits Owen Hart over the head with the crutch as he had him in the sharpshooter. It seems like the Owen thing just kind of disappeared in a way. What was the thinking on Owen, that he just wasn't ready for that top spot?
Man, Matt, I feel that same way too. Matt, maybe there was something to Owen always being in Bret's shadow. You know what I'm saying? And maybe it was always subliminally there. You know what I'm saying? Like, even as a writer, you're always thinking of Owen as the younger brother of Bret. And he's always going to be in the shadow of Bret, even when Bret's not there. And, bro, that is so unfair, and that is so wrong on so many levels. But sometimes, it's subliminal, and it's in your conscience, and that's the way you're kind of writing it without really realizing that, which is 100% unfair to the performer because it has nothing to do with Owen's performance.
Now, heading into January of 1998, we're in the new year, and of course it's going to be a big year for all of wrestling. The ascent of Stone Cold Steve Austin. He calls out the entire roster on the January 5th Raw and lets them know that the Royal Rumble, he'll be the last man standing, and that's the bottom line. And of course, at this point in time, Austin is red hot. But DX is holding its own. Shawn Michaels is calling out Undertaker. This HBK Undertaker thing, that was the purpose just to give HBK a thing to do to kind of hold that spot, keep him happy, keep him near the top.
I'm not looking at it like, okay, bro, like Austin's replacing Shawn now, so I got to write Austin really good shit and I'm going to give Shawn a B story. Like, no, bro. Like, while I was writing, I'm like, hey, as long as Shawn is here, Shawn is Shawn, bro. So, like, I'm going to write for Shawn like I'm writing for Austin. Now, they're going to go out there. They're going to get themselves over. But I'm not going to give Austin any more or give Shawn any less because of the direction we're going in. It's going to happen organically, bro.
How was HBK to work with at this point? Were you writing him stuff and he was like, don't give me this stupid shit?
Never. So, bro, his beef was with Vince.
So he was good with you.
Yes, his beef was with Vince. Never copped an attitude with me. Never had an attitude. He trusted me, bro. I think he knew. I always made sure from a writing point of view what was in his best interest. His heat was with Vince, bro, and he didn't really take it out on anybody else. I mean, his heat was with Vince.
Did he vent to you about Vince? Did he?
Bro, my favorite line of all time is, and I can't tell you exactly when. I could tell you it's between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. I'm the liaison between. I'm going back and forth, bro. Like we're in the 12th grade. Hey, Vince, Shawn said this. Okay, well, you tell Shawn that. Hey, Shawn, Vince said this. Okay, well, you go tell Vince that. That's what it was. That's literally what it was. And I'll never forget, I went one time and I said, okay, Shawn, Vince said, and this is where Shawn looked at me. Shawn was the champion at the time. And he goes, you tell Vince if he wants his mother effing title back, he can come to my mother effing house in San Antonio and take it off my mother effing mantle himself because that's the only way he's going to get it. Bro, that's the level it was at. Wow. That was the level. And everybody else was caught in the middle of it. Wasn't just me. Austin's in the middle of it because, at the end of the day, Austin's one of the boys. You know what I'm saying, bro? Triple H is certainly in the middle of it. Everybody is caught in the middle of this thing, man.
Is it fair to say that HBK was not one of the boys at this time?
I don't think so. I don't think so. He was one of the boys. He had an issue with the promoter. And in my opinion, he had every issue. He had every reason.
Looking back at Triple H at this time, do you think, number one, he either showed that unbelievable talent for dealing with politics and people at this time, or was this what helped him shape his unbelievable talent?
Oh, man, that's a great question, man. A great question. I think it's a combination of the both. I think it's the combination of the both. He was put in a very vicarious situation. We got to do a show on Triple H one day.
Oh, definitely.
Because my relationship with Triple H is not the same today as it was back then. But it is not going to influence me on how I talk about him back then. He was put in a very vicarious, difficult position. And, bro, he handled it like a pro. He handled it like a veteran. He
was almost an impossible situation.
Yes.
And would you give him an A+ for how he handled it back then?
100%. And you know what, Matt? Till you said that, I never looked back and said, you know what? Was that foreshadowing of what was to come and the way Triple H handled himself in that situation? I never looked at it that way before, but looking at it that way now, yes, absolutely.
It seems like it was an indicator of the kind of man he was at the time, even though he wasn't afforded that, ego. At that time. At the same time, there started being these house shows and house shows instances. One in, I believe, Arkansas in December. I was at one in Richmond, and I'll tell the first person story where Shawn Michaels started like messing with someone in the front row. He started flipping his hair, and then the guy pushed Shawn Michaels, and then Shawn Michaels would call security to get him out. He did this twice. He wasn't even in the match. It was Triple H versus Undertaker, and the place was unglued. He was out of control, was he not?
Yeah. Man, I saw a couple of instances with Shawn, and there's one that cracks me up, but it's post WrestleMania, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Bro, he had heat with like a lot of guys, like just the way he carried himself. And I'll never forget, bro, like we were at Madison Square Garden once, and he had heat with the Harris boys, and like they got him alone in a room, and no Kevin Nash was there. And I mean, they jacked Shawn Michaels up against the wall and scared the shit out of him. And the Harris brothers could have killed him. And I'll never forget, like after this, me and Shawn got into a heated situation. And I'll never forget, Shawn came to me, and he wanted to kick my ass. And his exact words to me were, "And I know I could take you." So in other words, he was telling me, bro, I'll bow up and I'll talk shit about everybody, but like when it comes down to it, like I'm running the other way, but like I know I could take you. I'll never forget those words. And I think of them today, bro, and it wasn't a pleasant situation back then, but I think of that today and I'm like, that's freaking Shawn, like in a nutshell.
A lot has been made of Bret Hart being a mark for himself with the title, and that being too important to him. Was Shawn Michaels a mark for himself with that title?
No, not at all. Not at all. And I don't think Bret was a mark for himself either. I disagree with that. I say that is bullshit. I think Bret was one of the most prideful people I've ever met. I don't know if that's a Canadian thing. I don't know. But Bret demanded respect and had a great amount of pride. I call bullshit on that. I don't agree with that. But no, I don't think the belt ever came into play like that at all with Shawn. No.
So the belt did not. What did the belt mean to Shawn? What did it signify to him?
I think it signified being the best. I think that was the most important thing, being the best. And I'm not talking about just stepping in the ring. I'm talking about all around
drawing money,
being the best. Yeah, I think that meant a lot to Shawn.
So we get to the Royal Rumble. It's HBK. He beats Undertaker after interference by Kane. There's a infamous bump that happens. And he gets backdropped out of the ring. Shawn Michaels, the king of the high backdrop, takes it super high. The small of his back appears to nick the corner of the casket. But this is the moment that he says is where he gets his significant back injury. Were you aware right away that there's an injury to Shawn Michaels after this match?
God, man, I wish I could tell you. I mean, I know the back issues and all that. I wish I could tell you I remember this specific incident, but like I really don't. But I do remember, now, yeah, they're definitely going forward. There was an issue with his back.
Was Shawn's health, was his, his back, other issues, was that something he would complain about as well?
Leading up to that, or before or after that?
Leading up to it.
No, not at all.
So after this point, he said, I have injuries now. There's a problem.
I never heard, leading up to that, bro. God, bro, the way he bumped around in that ring, he would never bellyache. He would never come back and sell it. Never affected him. That was the first time I remember that now the injury is going to affect the booking a little bit.
It's funny when you think about it, like, what's the plan? Is the plan for him to be backdropped clear over the casket, or is the point for him to be landed on the casket? I mean, it was an incredible spot. And at this time, you talked about going back and forth. What is Vince McMahon's mentality about Shawn Michaels at this time? Is it like, I can't wait to get rid of this motherfucker?
Without saying it. Yeah. He had Austin, man. He had Austin. He just wants to get this over with.
Do you think there was not enough thought put into how Shawn Michaels was treated, that he was being discarded without enough respect or thought put
I
to
don't
it?
think Vince McMahon should have ever treated Shawn the way he did. Ever. I don't. I don't care if he was pilled up. I don't care if he was out of line. There was a reason for all that. There was, for all we know, for all I know, part of that film addiction could have been because he was feeling this way. I don't know. But no, Vince McMahon should not have treated him that way. And that's the thing. Here's the thing, Matt, you got to understand. 9 out of 10 guys Vince could have done that to without them knowing a thing about it. Okay? And I'm sure he has. Bro, you're not going to do that to Shawn. Shawn's going to know exactly, what's the game and what's going on. You're not going to work freaking Shawn.
Will you say that Vince McMahon should not have treated Shawn Michaels like that? What treatment are you talking about? How does that manifest itself in your head? Like, he should not have done X, or X.
It's the way he treats you. Like when Austin's the champ, when Austin's the guy's coming up, everything's about Austin. He's going to meet with Austin all day. He's going to be involved in everything that Austin's doing. I mean, when somebody is Vince's priority, so you got to understand, Shawn's going from getting that treatment to, seeing Vince at the coffee urn. The way he's being treated is changing, and he knows that.
January 19th, Raw, one of the most memorable Raws of all time, Mike Tyson. The word is Mike Tyson, and we'll probably talk about Mike Tyson a bit more on a different show, but he comes in. Did you have the arc ready for Tyson and what he would do?
No. This was another one where, Matt, I'm going to tell you, this is another thing I remember vividly, and, people want to question it or whatever. Go ahead, bro. I remember things vividly. First of all, the idea of Tyson was all Vince McMahon. Vince had the foresight. Tyson is suspended at the time. Vince had the foresight to know, bro, people want to see Mike Tyson, whether it's on boxing or wrestling. They want to see Mike Tyson.
And the opportunity was there at that time.
Opportunity was there, 100% Vince. And, bro, I have a feeling for another time. I think there are ulterior motives. I really believe Vince McMahon wanted to manage the boxing career of Mike Tyson. I honestly believe that. We could talk about that on another time. This was one of those Vince walking around with a black eye meetings. We were in a creative meeting, bro. Me, Vince, probably Cornette, probably Bruce, because this was a big thing. Bruce wasn't in on creative, but if it were a big angle, like, Bruce would come,
And Pat, was Pat there?
I don't believe so, because Pat would have had to travel. You know what I'm saying? This is in Connecticut. I don't think Pat. So another moment where I'm sitting and I'm listening. They're all just assuming Mike Tyson's going to be a babyface. Okay? Because part of Vince's pitch was he wanted to bring Mike Tyson in to help his what's the word I'm looking for? He had a bad reputation at that. He just bit Holyfield's ear.
Right.
So he wanted to bring Tyson in to kind of, soften the way that the public was looking at him at the time.
Sure.
Okay. So everything they were talking about, it's like they were just assuming Tyson's coming in as a babyface. So while I'm listening to this, I'm like, okay, bro, like if these guys are assuming Tyson's going to be a babyface, then everybody else is going to assume Tyson's going to be a babyface. That's when I suggested, guys, we need to go the other way. Tyson needs to be a part of DX. Nobody will see that selling. Nobody will see that coming. I will write it in such a way where nobody will see it. Then he will rip off the shirt and it will be holy shit. I said, nobody will see that. They're expecting exactly what you guys are talking about. And that was exactly what we wound up doing. Before
that happened, Tyson makes his big entrance. Vince, just full of Vince, doing the Vince walk, is all proud of it. He is becoming Vince McMahon TV character, brings Tyson out all of a sudden, unexpectedly, the crashing of the glass, Stone Cold comes out, the push, and I just remember jumping out of my seat. But then Vince McMahon, you ruined everything. You ruined everything. How did that idea come about?
Oh God, bro, that was such a that was such. I mean, how many moments like that do you know? And I'm talking about as a writer as well. Yeah. I mean, how many opportunities like that are just like handed to you? You know, bro, a lot of it, Matt, a lot of it is just letting things happen organically. You know what I'm saying? If you stay true to characters and you know how characters are going to act in every situation, bro, if the talent knows who they are, you know, again, bro, go back to Roman Reigns. He must have gotten his head so screwed up, bro. He went out there not knowing who he was. You know, Austin knew who he was. Vince knew who he was. Tyson knew who he was. Bro, this is going to organically right itself if you stay true to who the players are.
Now, the idea of having Austin come out and interfere with this, was that something Vince came up with, or do you remember?
Nah, we came up with all the writing. I mean, we basically came up with it. We would give Vince the whole show. Then Vince would really look at that show through a microscope. And if that show was a 9, you know, Vince's little tweaks here and there would make it a 10. That was the genius of Vince.
Vince is becoming the Vince McMahon on screen. You ruined everything. You ruined everything. Is that one of those ad-libs, or is that something that...
Nah, I'm sure that was an ad-lib.
Now, meanwhile, this biggest moment, maybe the most memorable moment in the entire Attitude Era, just this great moment, no Shawn Michaels. Of course, Tyson's to join DX, but bringing Tyson in, did that further marginalize Shawn Michaels in his mind, or your mind, or Vince's mind?
You know, Matt, it's like, I swear to God, with the boys back then, like I said, it's a different world right now, man. Everything shifted to where the money was. Because you got to understand, the guys knew the hotter this shit gets, the more full the houses are going to be. They knew that everything was money driven. Everything. So like if Shawn Michaels sees this thing with Austin and Tyson, Shawn knows this means business. He's not going to let his ego. This wasn't an ego thing with Shawn. It was the way he was treated. It wasn't an ego thing. He never let it interfere with the business. It was, you're not gonna treat me like that and get away with it.
Admittedly, Shawn Michaels is not in a good place at this point in his life. Of course, on the March 2nd, 2018 Raw, Tyson is revealed to be a member of DX to further the feud, and we're leading up to WrestleMania. At what point does it become common knowledge that Shawn is probably on his way out and that Austin's getting the title?
Oh God, bro, we know that from the minute Mike Tyson steps in the door. We know that.
Has Shawn made it public at this point that he needs to leave for back surgery?
No. Mm-mm.
Are you going in between him with ideas? Is there anything said to you by Shawn about WrestleMania or how it's going? Was there any conflict?
No, I think, Matt, I think we knew, and again, I'm not 100% certain on this. I think I knew after WrestleMania, Shawn was taking time off. Because of the back. I don't know, if I knew about a surgery, but I think I did know that after WrestleMania, because of the back, he was taking some time off.
Did you hear anything from him that he should be being treated better because of how he's muscling through with this injury at this point?
Man, I think he took that thing with Vince just so personal, bro. It really, because like I said, in my job, I did not have a problem working with him.
The day of WrestleMania 14, do you have any memories of the vibe there that day? Of course, it was a very successful WrestleMania, the turning point in a lot of ways for the WWF. Do you have any memories of where Austin was at, where Shawn was at? Was it anything like Montreal at all, where there was a lot of weirdness in the air?
Well, there was a little. I remember Shawn came with his parents. I remember Shawn's parents were there. And I remember there was always the question in the back of your mind, like, is Shawn going to do everything according to the book? But to me, it wasn't that big of a question due to the way he handled himself up until this point. Two things. I think it was two things. Number one, I don't think Shawn would screw one of the boys. And number two, I'm sure Shawn was afraid of Austin. Okay, that's number one. But number two, bro, and I think this is the most important thing, Shawn's performance in the ring was the most important thing to him. It was. His performance in the ring superseded everything. Here's the part I remember more than anything, Matt. I'm watching this match. You know, Shawn's Shawn. You know, you would never know what the hell was going on in the back. Okay? But at one point in the match, bro, he's down on the mat and he does a kip up. And I'm like, you son of a bitch. And that is my first reaction. But then I'm like, you've never been in that kind of a spot in front of a sold out stadium with all the hype and all the anticipation. There is such a thing as an adrenaline rush. Okay, bro? So under those circumstances, I don't know what you're capable of or what you're not capable of, but knowing about the back issues leading up to that match, when I saw the kip up, I was like, all right, bro, how bad is he really hurt? Now, I will say this. After the match, like I witnessed Shawn Michaels in the locker room laid out in immense pain with his parents there.
Was it unusual for Shawn's parents to be at a show?
Yeah, very unusual. Yeah.
Do you think in Shawn Michaels' mind that was his last match?
Yeah. Yep.
And you say, you see him do the kip up and you say that son of a bitch, like, look at him. Was there other people in the back, Vince included maybe, that doubted the severity of his injury? Not because of any other reason than his history of kind of playing around with injuries where, he's taking time off, but then he does a backflip off the top rope.
Not for any reason, Matt, but it's wrestling, man. It's wrestling. There's always that non-trust. There's always that paranoia. There's always that somebody's working you. There's always somebody's got an angle. Always, 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 always. So it's not just that it was Shawn. It's just the nature of the business.
But Shawn's history had nothing to do with it?
I'm sure it did. I mean, I'm sure it did.
Looking at that WrestleMania, how big of a hand do you have as a writer in writing out WrestleMania? I know you don't book matches, you don't lay out matches, but what is your role in a WrestleMania?
Just really finishes and any vignettes throughout the show, that would take place on the television show. But I certainly don't get involved in what they're doing, in the match.
In the match, Meltzer reports that Shawn re-injured his back early on, gutted out a good but not great match with a banged-up Austin. He had vertebrae damage going into the match, which no doubt was aggravated by the early bumps. The pain was etched on his face as if he was willing himself not to pass out. That was the same thing you saw watching the match as well?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he held nothing. Shawn's not going to hold anything back, bro. I mean, he's not. He's just not.
Of course, the match and the WrestleMania was an unprecedented success in so many ways. But the casualty is that Shawn Michaels is now not with the company. Were you guys aware after it, or when were you made aware Shawn's going to be away for a while?
Oh, we knew. I mean, we knew leading into the match. We knew that he was going to be gone, because of the back, and he was going to get through this match. I don't think we knew for how long, but I'll never forget this, Matt, and it was everything that I thought. I'll never forget the following day at Raw. Vince gets me in his office, okay, and he says to me, Vince, from this day going forward, you are connected to Steve Austin 24/7. He says, you are with Steve, you are there for Steve, and he basically said, I don't give a shit about anybody else. Steve Austin is your priority, and he's to have your undivided attention 24/7. He never told me that about anybody else, ever.
I was going to ask. Vince was behind Austin in an unprecedented way.
Never told me that about The Rock. Never. That was the only time he said to me, I don't care about anybody else.
Was there talk in the back Shawn would be returning after surgery, or did you guys think, we ain't never seeing that guy again?
I don't think we were thinking about it. You know what? And, Matt, as far as I'm concerned, bro, if and when Shawn comes back, it's freaking Shawn Michaels.
Right.
So I know me, like, I'm taking him back with open freaking arms. Now, I know he's got to go home. And I know, bro, it's not just physical wounds. I know it's mental wounds. I can't imagine what the guy was going through when he went home. I can't imagine. I can't imagine what was going through his head. I can't imagine the emotions. I can't imagine him, if he turned on a show and saw Austin. I can't imagine that emotional, mental, physical state at that point. I can't imagine.
But there's no part of you that thinks that the injury was not legitimate.
The only thing I would not know is the seriousness of the injury. I just know Shawn's back hurts. We've got to baby him. We've got to take care of him. Maybe he can't work as much. We got to look at who we're putting him in there with. I know we have to work around the injury, but I don't know the severity of the injury.
Shawn Michaels is gone, and DX continues. And the next day on Raw, another pivotal moment in the Attitude Era where, Triple H comes out and, quasi buries Shawn, but sets up really a feud later on for him. Was that the plan the whole time, or was that something you guys came up with that day?
Wait, say that one more time.
Triple H comes out and says that Shawn dropped the ball, and something is set up.
No, we weren't playing that for a while. We were writing TV like week to week to week to week. So again, being organic and being true to characters, now Triple H was the guy. Shawn was gone. We didn't know when Shawn was coming back. Now he was the guy. So, of course, Triple H being a heel, now with his friend gone, he's going to bury him. So that was all organic.
And that same show, we saw the reintroduction of Sean Waltman, X-Pac.
One of the greatest promos of all time.
A great promo, a great moment. So it seems to me, you guys knowing he's coming in, at that point Shawn Michaels is leaving. That X-Pac is going to be Triple H's second, and that DX as an entity is going to continue without Shawn Michaels.
Yes. Here's a funny thing, Matt. Here's a side note, bro. So time is going by, and Vince ain't really talking about Shawn Michaels. I think at the time, Matt, it might have just been me and Vince writing at that time. I don't remember. It might have just been the two of us. So I remember some time passed. I'm bad with times, but as the writer of the show, I'm like, Vince, we got to bring Shawn back. Shawn was ready to come back.
Do you remember when this was?
It had to be right before he came back. It had to be. Okay. And I'm like, Vince, we got to bring Shawn back. We need to bring Shawn back. So Vince was like, Vince, you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. So I'll never forget, man, we bring Shawn back. Something happened, Matt, at the TV that day where we either took him off one of the shows or we lessened the amount of time like we were going to use him. Okay? And I don't remember how, I don't remember what, I can't remember the circumstances, but all I know is he was livid. He cuts this promo on me in front of everybody. And this isn't the I know I could take you promo. That comes later.
Right.
That comes later. He cuts this promo on me. You know, you made me fly all the way out here for this. You knew I wasn't going to be on the show, and you guys just did this to me on purpose, this and that. Cut a promo, a stiff promo on me in front of like a lot of people, right? Vince was not there. So I remember I freaking tracked down Vince, and I'm freaking hot and I'm pissed off, and I go into Vince and I'm like, Vince, you need to freaking do something about Shawn, man. He just cut this promo on me in front of everybody. Vince didn't say anything. Finally, when I was done talking, Vince looks at me and goes, wait a minute, let me get this straight. You want me to go to straighten out Shawn Michaels when you were the one that told me I had to bring Shawn Michaels back? Now you want, and I'll never forget, like, I shut my mouth. Like, there wasn't one thing I could say. Here I was the guy, you got to bring him back. Pal, you're the one that wanted him back, not me. And there were other stories to follow.
And of course, after WrestleMania 14, it was many, many years before Shawn Michaels came back. Were you there when they were thinking about bringing him back? And there's a story of him coming unable to perform and showing up unable to perform, and him and Triple H getting into a heated disagreement that led to a falling out between them. Are you aware of that situation, or were you around at the time?
That does not sound familiar to me.
So the legacy of those last few months of Shawn Michaels is the legacy of someone wearing out his welcome, or somebody doing the best that he could, or somebody in the throes of addiction?
I think it was two stories. And I think these two stories tell you a lot about the man. And I love Shawn. This story tells you two things about Shawn Michaels, and that's all you need to know, bro. Number one, when he set foot between those ropes, he was in that ring for one reason and one reason only. He was going to show everybody he was the best in the world. And I'm not just talking about, bro, the people at home. I'm talking about the guys in the locker room. That's number one. Okay? Number two, through the cockiness and the brashness and the promos and the posing naked with the belt, and telling Vince McMahon, you want your belt, come to San Antonio and get it. Throughout all that bullshit, you had a very, very sensitive person underneath. It was not, okay, I'm not going to be the guy anymore. Oh, it was not that. It was the way he was treated. And he felt he was unappreciated by Vince, and he felt he deserved better. That hurt him at his core.
But are you giving him a little bit of a pass here, where should anybody act the way that Shawn Michaels was acting in a professional atmosphere during this time period, regardless of reasons?
Probably not, but I 100% understood it.
We're doing this show because Shawn Michaels is set to return in just a couple days at the Crown Jewel with Triple H tag teaming against Taker and Kane. It's 1998 all over again. What do you think about Shawn Michaels returning?
Matt, I had seen Shawn. I knew Shawn was going to be at a convention that I was at. I had not seen Shawn since Sting's show, so it was quite a while. And I knew Shawn was going to be there and Brett was going to be there, and I knew I had to stop everything to pay my respects to see both of them. Shawn was in like some auditorium, and there was a line wrapped around the building and this and that to see Shawn. I made my way in there, and I kind of went from behind him. Shawn turns around and he sees me, and bro, like, he couldn't get out of his chair quick enough. And, Matt, like, that's the thing. So much shit is said in the wrestling media. So much of it is not true, and you're always wondering, bro, what did this guy read that Vince Russo said this and that? You're always wondering that when when I know, bro, like I freaking love this guy and I miss this guy, but who knows how he's gonna react to me. So, bro, he turned around, he got up immediately, he hugged me. I mean, my God, he made me feel like he was so happy to see me, right? I made it a point when I got back to get him. I don't even remember how I did it, but I got him to follow me on Twitter so I could DM him. Okay. And I said, Shawn, I want to talk to you. I said, can you give me your number, whatever. He was very reluctant. He didn't know if people could read the DMs. Like I had to jump through hoops for him to know he can get me his number. Nobody else is going to get it. So finally, like I called him, Matt, and the reason for the phone call was I had to tell Shawn Michaels he was the greatest performer I ever worked with. Period. And I had to tell him that. Bro, when I told him that, I broke down. Like, I cried when I told him that because it meant a lot to me that he understood that. And I just bawled. And I said, bro, I've never said that to anybody else, would never say that to anybody else. You were the greatest performer I ever worked. He does me a huge favor. He comes on my show when I was doing the old Pyro and Bell, who gave me a great interview. Right. So he starts working at NXT. A week after he starts working at NXT, he unfollows me on Twitter. And that's the last I've heard of Shawn Michaels. But to get back to recently, I think legacy is important. And bro, it's a work sport, bro. The way people right now remember Shawn Michaels.
Right.
There are some guys, bro, that I just want to remember at the top of their game, and Shawn is probably at the top of that list.
All right, Vince, we have some questions from Twitter. Our great Twitter followers at RussoCoon TWC, and one of them is someone I know pretty well. His name is Instagram : a wrestling historian, and he's got a question. Was a backup opponent discussed for Austin if Michaels was too hurt to work Wrestlemania 14?
Man, that's a great question, but no, not to my knowledge. I think, again, he was hurt leading up to that. But I'm sure Shawn gave Vince his word that he was going to be there. And, like I said, man, when it came down to that match and getting in that ring, Shawn lived up and above his obligation. So I think Vince felt fairly comfortable of, regardless of what they were going through. I think Vince felt comfortable, man, if he screws him, he's going to screw Austin. And I think Vince felt comfortable that was not going to happen. Now, maybe in Vince's mind, he did, but never discussed creative.
We talked earlier about Owen and about the lost opportunity of Owen. Any idea, this is from Marv at MarvBest36, any idea why it wasn't HBK versus Owen at Royal Rumble? It would have made a little bit more sense than the Undertaker match.
Yeah, man, I wish I could tell you. Man, I wish I can really go back and remember those specifics. I mean, I could tell you this, man. It had nothing to do with, me not being a fan of Owen or not believing Owen could deliver, or, nothing like that. But for me to be able to like specifically break that down so long ago, I wish I could remember, but I can't.
We talked earlier about you would kind of get directions about the contracts and, maybe slow this down a little bit, or this isn't working out, we have to change direction. Do you remember any specific change of direction with Owen, or you don't remember that at all?
I don't remember that at all. And I don't think for a second, it was ever contractual. I I mean, Matt, there's a story, and I mean, this could be another show. Just about the things that you don't the things that you don't forget.
Right.
Man, I was home one night, Matt, and it was a late Friday night, and the Montreal screw job had just went down. Okay, I got a call from Owen Hart crying to me on the phone. Now, you got to understand something. When I tell you I loved Owen Hart with all my heart and soul, you have to understand that. So when Owen is calling me like this and he's upset, I am going to do whatever I can. And I remember the conversation was, he was going to come back to the WWE after the Montreal screw job. And he basically said to me, Vince, Brett is telling me that he is going to disown me as a brother if I come back to the WWE. And he goes, Vince, you have to call him for me. Now, Matt, this is the Friday after the Survivor Series on Sunday.
Okay.
Now, bro, with what happened and this severity of what happened, bro, I don't want to call Brett and get involved in this thing. That's not not that I'm afraid to talk to him or anything. It's just not my place. So of course my first thing to Owen was, Owen, you need to call Vince, man. You need to call Vince and tell Vince. And then again, it was a late Friday night, and this is why I remember, because he said to me, he goes, Vince, I tried calling Vince and he's not answering his phone. And it was like, Matt, Vince, please, I'm begging you, you need to call Brett for me. So, bro, like at that point, I called Brett because it was Owen, and he was that upset. He couldn't get a hold of Vince. Now, I don't know. I don't know how Vince is going to take that. I don't know if I'm doing Vince a favor, because I'm sure Vince and Brett did not talk from Sunday to Friday. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I'm doing him a favor where I'm getting information. I don't know. All I know is, as a human being, I am calling Brett because someone is so distraught. And bro, I called Brett, and the first thing I said to Brett was, I said, Brett, you're never going to understand this. We are 100% going to disagree on this, and I get it, and I understand, and I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. I said, but what that was about was, it's not that Vince didn't trust you. He didn't trust Eric. Vince did not want there to be any chance whatsoever of his title, the WWE World title, getting in the hands of Eric Bischoff. I said, so basically what Vince did, I said, he did that to protect everybody in his company. I said, it wasn't personal, bro. It wasn't about you. It's not that he didn't trust you. And I said, and you may hate me for saying that. I said, but Brett, I back what he did. I said, I'm just being honest with you. I know why he did it. He was protecting the company. And bro, I'll never forget. Brett said to me, Vince, you know what I felt like doing the next day? And I said, what? He goes, I felt like showing up at the arena, like with a gun and just blowing everybody away. When he said that to me, Matt, like I realized, like, and bro, that was so not Brett.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So not Brett. But I realized, like, his anger was at such another level at that point. And like when he said that to me, I was like, I said to myself, bro, like, he's not going to think differently, like no matter what. And then I remember the next day on Saturday, I had to go to Vince's house for something. I don't know if it was a meeting. I don't remember, but I know clearly I had to go to his house, and I had to tell him face to face. I was like, Vince, I spoke to Brett last night. He was like, what? And I'm like, bro, Owen called me. I told Owen to get a hold of you. He said that he tried. He was very upset. I said, bro, I couldn't deny his request. And, I told Vince the conversation, that I had with Brett. And, that was basically, the end of it. But, see, again, like those are the things like, things like that, man, you don't forget. And man, I swear to God, Matt, the probably the toughest thing I ever had to do in my career. And I knew it, bro. I knew it the day I was sitting down on a Sunday afternoon about to sign a contract in Atlanta with WCW. I knew it. It was first on my mind. It was prominent on my mind. The very first thing I had to do when I arrived at that building at WCW was have a man-to-man conversation with Bret Hart. Because you've got to understand the tragedy with Owen, happened after Bret went to WCW. My last conversation with Bret was that conversation I'm just telling you about. So like I knew like, bro, this is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. But out of respect for Bret, the first thing you have to do, bro, is you have to find him. You have to allow him to ask you any question he wants to ask you about, what happened that night in Kansas City. He's going to be upset. He might blame you. He might point the finger at you. But the respect I had for Bret, I mean, that was the first thing. I could not do anything else at WCW before I did that. And that was the first thing I did, bro. I went to the catering, and he was in catering, and I pulled up a chair right next to him, and I basically said, bro, I told him how I felt about him. I said, I'll always feel this way about you, but I am here. If there's anything you want to ask me about anything that happened, my part in it, whatever, Bret, please do. And he did. And, obviously, he really didn't want to accept any of my answers, but, he was not mean to me. He was not disrespectful to me. He did not cut a promo on me. There were times he was a little angry, but that was really about the extent of it.
Well, and of course, we will have a Bret Hart episode or 10 down the road, but that's a great story, and it kind of gives a little insight into Owen. A fun question I probably should have covered if I would have thought about it, from at Crude and Tattooed, our good friend California in Fury, who asks, after the screw job, DX member Rick Rude left the WWF and showed up on Nitro with a shaved face, and then still appeared on the Taped Raw later with a beard.
Yeah,
Rick Rude was on both shows at the same night. It's a huge moment. What did you think about it? What was the reaction about it?
I got to tell you something, Matt. I'm trying to think of before I say this. It was the Rick Rude jump, or maybe it was the Piper jump. But a lot of people had jumped over to WCW. And I remember there was a company-wide meeting. I swear to God, I remember this. There was a company-wide meeting, and I think it was Rude, and then it was Piper. But there was really one that like broke the camel's back, because everybody was going over there. Hall, Nash, Luger, everybody was going. Savage, Rude, and Piper. I think Piper might have been the one that broke the camel's back. And Vince gave a company-wide meeting, and I'll never forget it. He said, "Well, they got them all. They're not going to take anybody else from us." And his point was, Ted Turner's money was stealing all our talent. And I swear to God, bro, I'm sitting there, and like Vince is playing the victim, like poor pitiful me, and I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, bro, how many territories did you put out of business? Right. Like, are you like, bro? It was really a company wide meeting, so an employee would not know that. Right. But like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, are you effing kidding me, bro? Like, you put every freaking territory across the country out of business. And now because Ted Turner possibly has more money than you're the victim, poor pitiful me. I'll never forget. And bro, that may have been like maybe the lowest moment that I ever saw Vince McMahon.
Yeah, it's like, hey, Vince, remember the AWA?
I know exactly, man. I'm like, are you like seriously, bro?
Because-
Like, really?
Because no one else does, because everybody from there
Yeah,
was in
exactly.
WrestleMania 1.
Yeah. See, like I've never told that story before. Nobody ever. It never got brought up. But I just remember sitting there saying, "What a freaking piece of work, man."
It is amazing how he did posture that, though, like in the Billionaire Ted speeches and everything, where he goes, "I'm the underdog here," you know. And so I guess finally, we have a question about from Dirty Dog Darcy at Dirty Dog MES on Twitter. Do you believe that the heat Michaels got from Montreal helped Austin's popularity after defeating Michaels at Mania? I guess what they're saying is that, you know, Michaels may be seen as a company guy, and Austin fighting against that, and the heat Michaels got on screen and off screen. Do you think the Montreal situation by osmosis helped Austin?
I don't think so, bro, because what percentage of the audience really knew? You know what I mean? I mean, again, we can't, you know, that dirt sheet audience, bro, those smart marks, those are the minority. I mean, they're really the minority. The majority are, you know, casual fans, wrestling fans. How many of them really knew, like, the nuts and bolts of that story and what was going on? How many of those people, like, had any idea, like, that wasn't part of the show? You know what I mean?
You don't think a majority of the fans knew because of the internet at that time?
I don't. I mean, you're talking, bro. I mean, no doubt the internet, you know, was coming into play. But I mean, Matt, you're talking about 20 years ago. The internet at that time was nowhere near where it was. Bro, I remember I was the guy in charge when I was writing the magazine. Again, something I've never spoken about. Bro, I was at those initial meetings when AOL came in the building. Nobody knew what AOL was. Like, and they sold us a bill of goods of AOL. Bro, I was the guy that was, you know, I would call Shawn and I would call Brett and I would call, you know, whoever. And we were doing interviews, you know, like live interviews with these guys on AOL. And I was the guy interviewing them. So this is probably like 95, 96. Bro, the presence of the internet was there and starting to get there, but nowhere near did it have the impact that it does now. I remember Bob Ryder, bro. Bob Ryder did the very first Prodigy gimmick with Shawn Michaels and Kevin Nash. I believe it was the WrestleMania at Hartford. He did the very first one. And you know, I sat there with Ryder and, you know, and what was that, WrestleMania 11?
Right, there's probably 20 people in the chat room.
Yeah, exactly, bro. So, like, no way, bro. Like, no way did the majority of the fans know what was going on.
You know, it's interesting to me because as a wrestling fan who was a wrestling fan then, I remember when the internet became a part of it, and I'm not so sure. I guess we might agree to disagree on that and talk about it later. But those are our Twitter questions. Of course, we are Truth with Consequences. Guys, go ahead and pick up a Truth with Consequences t-shirt. We've got some great shirts. We've got a blocked NWO style block shirt, a Russo Club shirt, a Russo Coon 2020 shirt, and I believe Russo shirt. So many great shirts available at, it's easy to remember, shirtsoftruth.com. And of course, check us out on Twitter. You can interact with both of us there at Russo Coon TWC. And of course, if you want this show early, and if you want it longer, and you want lots of bonus content, go on over to our Patreon. Patreon.com/Russo Coon TWC. Vince, we had a great show today. I think we said it all. Anything else you have to say to our awesome listeners out here in the listening universe?
Yeah, I just want to tell everybody, man, we're going to, like, on November 1st on the brand over on the Realm Network, we're going to 10 shows a week, bro. It's under $1 a week. This show is much different than the shows on the brand because the shows on the brand, bro, like, I'm the interviewer and I conduct the show. A lot of guys in the business are co-hosts, you know, Stevie Richards, Disco Inferno, Big Vito. It's a different type of show, but bro, you get less than $1 a week, 10 shows a week. You can opt out at any time. So you could try it out. If you don't like it, you don't have to sign up for a second month, but you might want to try that out. Just go to russosbrand.com.
Definitely go to russosbrand.com to check out all the shows on the Realm, and also all the Vince Russo shows on Realm. And make sure to check us out next week on Vince Russo Truth with Consequences.